So let's continue our discussion on troubleshooting, and let's talk about some various troubleshooting methods. Now, when it comes down to it, as I've mentioned, there's no right or wrong way to troubleshoot a network. To be perfectly honest, troubleshooting is really more of an art than it is a science. Truly, the only way you get good at troubleshooting is by getting set in front of broken networks and having to figure out what's going on. Essentially, you just need to find a method that works for you, and so long as that method is repeatable and you can follow along with yourself and explain it to other people, then it's a valid troubleshooting method. That being said, there are two general schools of thought and one variation that we'll get to on the next slide on different ways to troubleshoot networks. And as I said, these aren't right, wrong, or indifferent. They're just various methods you can use when you're starting out with troubleshooting. The first is top-down, and when we say top-down, we're talking about the layers of the OSI model. Top-down starts at the top, at the application layer, and works its way down towards the bottom, the physical layer. My experience is this method is mainly used by server administrators or application administrators. As an example, they say, no one can get email. Let me see, is the email application running? Is it responding on port 389 or 25? If it is, well then let's go down to the network layer. Because again, you can do troubleshooting at the presentation, session, and transport layer, but that generally requires a network traffic sniffer. And again, it's been my experience that you don't break out the packet sniffer unless things are going really, really badly. Or you have to prove to a brain-dead vendor that no, really, our traffic is making it to you, you're just rejecting it. So then you make it down to the network layer. Well, is routing working? Is the cable plugged in? And that's how you do the top-down troubleshooting. The other major method is bottom-up. You start at the physical layer, work your way up to the application layer. Again, it's been my experience that this is generally used by network administrators because, again, we look at the network a little differently than the server admins. The first thing we're going to check is, or at least the first thing I check is the cable plugged in? Okay, are you actually on the Ethernet network? Are you able to look in your ARP cache and get MAC addresses? Can you ping your default gateway? And you go up and up the layer up until you get to the server, at which point you either validate that yes, the network is working all the way through, or we need to troubleshoot here at layer 3. Now again, both of those methods are well and good. The variation on that method is honestly the way that I do my troubleshooting, and that's divide and conquer. Divide and conquer is just about exactly what it sounds like. You start in the middle, and you let the initial troubleshooting results guide you which way to go. This works the best when you're talking about WAN troubleshooting. If someone at a remote site says, hey, I can't get to the application server that's at our data center, well, the first thing that you'd want to check is routing working? And you get into that router, do you have valid routes all the way end to end? And if you do, then you know you have layer 3 connectivity and you can go from there. Okay, well, routing is working. Is the network cable plugged in? Do you have an IP address on your workstation? Is the IP address on the server the IP address you think it is? Are you going to the right device? So again, you'll get there eventually, but when you're talking about WANs, the divide and conquer method, again, I found to be the most effective. And that concludes our discussion of troubleshooting methods.